Bowser, you want to try that quote? The name of it, I'll lead you in. The name of a poem by Allen Ginsberg that begins,
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness. Starving, hysterical, naked. Wah, ha, ha, ha,
nailed
ha.
it. Cheers. Chat wants to know how much for a video of Jack/Bowser reading that entire poem. Oh, that's a huge poem.
Yes, it's very long. But also, I already.
You already said $50?
I already said that, yeah.
$50? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Good,
Yeah.
good minds. Great minds. In one heckle. Cassie.
Oh no.
What? 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 Huh?
We have to do that. That's fine.
Oh no, I forgot. I put up a thing. I put up a bounty, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, F.
We did.
Oh, F.
It's fine. Veronica says, so, should we now expect Bowser to read Howl or
Howl by Allen Ginsberg. 1. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn and looking for an angry fix. Angel-headed hipsters burning for the ancient heavenly connection to starry dynamo in the machinery of night. Who, poverty and tatters and hollow-eyed and high sat up smoking in the supernatural darkness of cold water flats floating across the tops of city contemplating jazz. Who bared their brains to heaven under the L and saw Mohammedan angels staggering on tenement roofs illuminated. Who passed through universities with radiant, cool eyes, hallucinating Arkansas and Blake-like tragedy among the scholars of war. Who were expelled from the academics for crazy and publishing obscene odes on the windows of the skull. Who cowered in unshaven rooms in underwear, burning their money in waste baskets and listening to the terror through the wall. Who got busted in their pubic beards returning through Laredo with a belt of marijuana for New York. Who ate fire in paint hotels or drank turpentine in Paradise Alley. Death or purgatoried their torsos night after night with dreams, with drugs, with waking nightmares, alcohol, and endless sorry. Oh, man. Incomparable blind streets of shuddering cloud and lightning, in the mind leaping toward poles of Canada and Paterson, illuminating all the motionless world of time, between peyote solidities of halls, backyard green tree cemetery dawns, wine drunkenness over the rooftops, yeah, storefront burrows of T-head joyride neon blinking traffic light, sun and moon and tree vibrations in the roaring winter dusks of Brooklyn, ash can rantings and kind king light of mind. Who chained themselves to subways for endless ride of battery to holy Bronx on Benzedrine until the noise of wheels and children brought them down shuddering, mouth-racked and battered bleak of brain, all drained of brilliance in the drear light of zoo. Oh, I know that word, zoo. Who sank all night in submarine light of Bickfords floated out and sat through the stale beer afternoon in desolate fugazis, listening to the crack of doom on the hydrogen jukebox. Who talked continuously 70 hours from park to pad to bar to Bellevue to museum to Brooklyn Bridge. A lost battalion of platonic conversations jumping down the stoops of fire escape off windowsills, off Empire State, out of the moon. Yakking, screaming, vomiting, whispering, facts and memories, and anecdotes, and eyeball kicks and shocks of hospitals and jails and wars. Whole intellects disgorged in total recall for 7 days and nights with brilliant eyes, meet for the synagogue cast on the pavement. Who vanished into nowhere, Zen, New Jersey, leaving a trail of ambitious picture postcards of Atlantic City Hall, suffering Eastern sweets and Hungarian bone grindings, and migraines of China under junk withdrawal in Newark's bleak furnished room, who wandered around and around at midnight in the railroad yard, wondering where to go and went, leaving no broken hearts, who lit cigarettes in boxcars, racketing through the snow towards lonesome farms in grandfather night, who studied Plotinus post St. John of the Cross telepathy and Bop Kabbalah because the cosmos instinctively vibrated at their feet in Kansas. Who loaned it through the streets of Idaho, seeking visionary Indian angels who were visionary Indian angels. Who thought... Sorry. Who thought they were only mad when Baltimore gleamed in supernatural ecstasy? Who jumped in limousines with the Chinamen of Oklahoma on the impulse of winter midnight street light small town rain? Who lounged hungry and lonesome through Houston seeking jazz or sex or soup, and followed the brilliant Spaniard to converse about America and eternity and hopeless tasks, and so took ship to Africa. Who disappeared into the volcanoes of Mexico, leaving behind nothing but the shadow of dungarees and the lava and ash of poetry scattered in Fireplace, Chicago. Who reappeared on the West Coast investigating the FBI in beards and shorts with big pacifist eyes, sexy in their dark skin, passing out incomprehensible leaflets. Who burned cigarettes in holes in their arms, protesting the narcotic tobacco haze of capitalism. Who distributed super communist pamphlets in Union Square, weeping and undressing while the sirens of Los Alamos wailed them down, and wailed down Wall, and the Staten Island ferry also wailed. Who broke down crying in white gymnasiums naked and trembling before machinery of other skeletons. Who bit detectives in the neck and shrieked with delight in police cars for committing no crime but their own wild cooking pedastry and intoxication. Who howled on their knees in the subway and were dragged off the roof, having waving genitals and manuscripts. Who let themselves be in the ass by saintly motorcyclists and screamed with joy. Who blew and were blown by those human seraphim, the sailors, caresses of Atlantic and Caribbean love. Who bailed in the morning, in the evenings, in rose gardens, and the grass of public parks and cemeteries, scattering their semen freely to whomever come who may. Who hiccuped endlessly, trying to giggle, but wound up with a sob behind a partition in a Turkish bath when the blonde and naked angel came to pierce them with a sword. Who lost their love boys to 3 old shrews of fate, the one-eyed shrew of the heterosexual dollar, and the one-eyed shrew that winks out of the womb, and the one-eyed shrew that does nothing but sit on her and snip the intellectual golden threads of the craftsman's loom. Who copulated, ecstatic and insatiate, with a bottle of beer, a sweetheart, a package of cigarettes, a candle, and fell off the bed, and continued along the floor and down the hall, and ended up fainting on the wall with a vision of ultimate and eluding last of consciousness. Who sweetened the snatches of million girls trembling in the sunset, and were the red-eyed in the morning, but prepared to sweeten the snatch of the sunrise, flashing buttocks under barns and naked in the lake. Who went out whoring through Colorado in myriad stolen night cars, and see, secret hero of these poems, Coxman and Adonis of Denver, joy to the memory of his innumerable lays of girls in empty lots, and diner backyards, movie houses, rickety rows, on mountaintops, in caves, or with gaunt waitresses in familiar roadside lonely petticoat upliftings, and especially secret gas station solipsisms of Johns and hometown alleys, too. Who faded out in vast, sordid movies, were shifted in dreams, woke on a sudden Manhattan, and picked themselves up out of basements hungover with heartless Tokay and horrors of Third Avenue iron dreams, and stumbled into unemployment offices. Who walked all night with their shoes full of blood on the snowbank docks, waiting for a door in the East River to open, with a room full of steam heat and opium. Who created great suicidal dramas on the apartments of cliff banks of the Hudson under the wartime blue floodlight of the moon, and their heads shall be crowned with laurel in oblivion. Wow. Who ate lamb stew of the imagination, or digested the crab at the muddy bottom of the rivers of Bowery? Who wept at the romance of the sorry? Who wept at the romance of the streets with their push cars full of onions and bad music? Who sat in boxes, breathing in the darkness under the bridge, and rose up to build harpsichords in their lofts? Who coughed on the 6th floor of Harlem, crowned with flame under the tubercular sky, surrounded by orange crates of theology? Who scribbled all night, rocking and rolling over lofty incantations, which in the yellow morning were stanzas of gibberish? Who cooked rotten animal lung, heart, feet, tail, borscht, and tortillas, dreaming of the pure vegetable kingdom? Oh, the mushroom kingdom, am I right? Who plunged themselves under meat trucks looking for an egg? Who threw their watches off the roof to cast their ballot for eternity outside of time, and alarm clocks fell on their heads every day for the next decade? Who cut their wrists three times successively unsuccessfully, gave up, and were forced to open antique stores where they thought they were growing old, and cried? Who were burned alive in their innocent flannel suits on Madison Avenue amid blasts of leaden verse and the tanked-up clatter of the iron regiments of fashion and the nitroglycerin shrieks of the fairies and advertising and the mustard gas of the sinister intelligent editors, or who were run down by the drunken taxicabs of absolute reality? Who jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge? This actually happened, and walked away unknown and forgotten into the ghostly days of Chinatown, soup alleyway, and fire trucks. Not even one free beer. Who sang out of their windows in despair, fell out of the subway window, jumped in the filthy Passaic, leaped on Negroes, cried all over the street, danced on broken wine glasses, barefoot, smashed phonograph records of the nostalgic European 1930s German jazz, finished the whiskey, and threw up groaning into the bloody toilet. Moans in their ears, and the blasts of colossal steam whistles. Who barred down the highway of the past journey into each other's hot rod Golgotha jail solitude watch or Birmingham jazz incarnation? Who drove cross country 72 hours to find out if I had a vision, or if you had a vision, or if he had a vision to find out eternity? Who drove to Denver, who died in Denver, who came back to Denver and waited in vain, who watched over Denver and brooded and loaned in Denver, and finally went away to find out that the time and now Denver is loathsome for her heroes? Who fell on their knees in hopeless cathedrals praying for each other's salvation and light and breasts until the soul illuminated its hair for a second? Who crashed through their minds in jail, waiting for impossible criminals with golden heads and the charm of reality in their hearts? Who sang sweet blues to Alcatraz? Who retired to Mexico to cultivate a habit, or Rocky Mount to tender Buddha, or Tangiers to boys, or South Pacific, or to the Black Locomotive, or Harvard to Narcissus, to Woodlawn, to the Daisy Chain, or Grave? Who demanded saintly trials accusing the radio of hypnotism and were left with their insanity and their heads and a hung jury? Who threw potato salad at CCNY lecturers on Dadaism and subsequently presented themselves on the granite steps of the madhouse with shaven heads and harlequin speech of suicide, demanding instantaneous lobotomy? And who were given, instead of the concrete void of insulin, metrazole, electricity, hydrotherapy, psychotherapy, occupational therapy, ping pong, and amnesia? Who, in humorless protest, overturned only one symbolic ping pong table, resting briefly in catatonia, returning years later, truly bald, except for a wig of blood, and tears and fingers, to the visible madman doom of the wards of the mad towns of the East? Okay. Pilgrim States, Rocklands, and Greyston's voided halls, bickering with the echoes of soul, rocking and rolling in the midnight solitude bench dolem realms of love, dream of life a nightmare, bodies turned to stone as heavy as the moon. With mother finally redacted, and the last fantastic book flung out of the tenement window, and the last door closed at 4 a.m., and the last telephone slammed at the wall in reply, and the last furnished room emptied down to the last piece of mental furniture, a yellow paper rose twisted on a wire hanger in the closet, and even that imaginary, nothing but a hopeful little hallucination. Ah, Carl, while you are not safe, I am not safe. And now you're really in the total animal soup of time. And who therefore ran through the icy streets obsessed with a sudden flash of the alchemy of the use of the ellipsis catalog and variable measure and vibrating plane? Who dreamt and made incarnate gaps in time and space through images juxtaposed and trapped the archangel of the soul between two visual images and joined the elemental verbs and set the noun and dash of consciousness together, jumping with the sensation of pater omnipotens aeternia deus. To recreate the syntax and measure of poor human prose, and stand before you speechless and intelligent and shaking with shame, rejected, yet confessing, out of the soul to conform to the rhythm of thought in his naked and endless head. The madman bum and angel beat in time, unknown, yet putting down here what might be left to say in time come after death. And rose incarnate in the ghostly clothes of jazz, in the gold horn shadow of the band, and blew the suffering of America's naked mind for love into an Eli Eli Lama Lama. Sabatini saxophone cry that shivered down the cities down to the last radio, with the absolute heart of the poem of life butchered out of their own bodies, good to eat 1,000 years. Part 2. What sphinx of cement and aluminum bashed open their skull and ate up the brains and imagination? Moloch, solitude, filth, ugliness, ash cans and unobtainable dollars, children screaming under the stairways, boys sobbing in armies, old men weeping in the parks. Moloch, Moloch, nightmare of Moloch. Moloch the loveless. Mental Moloch. Moloch the heavy judger of men. Moloch the incomprehensible prison. Moloch the crossbowed soulless jailhouse and congress of sorrow. Moloch whose buildings are judgment. Moloch the vast stone of war. Moloch the stunned governments. Moloch, whose mind is pure machinery. Moloch, whose blood is running money. Moloch, whose fingers are 10 armies. Moloch, whose breast is a cannibal dynamo. Moloch, whose ear is a smoking tomb. Moloch, whose eyes are 1,000 blind windows. I fought this boss. Moloch, whose skyscrapers stand in the long streets like endless Jehovah's. Moloch, whose factories dream and croak in the fog. Moloch, whose smokestacks and antenna crown the cities. Moloch, whose love is endless oil and stone. Moloch, whose soul is electricity and banks. Moloch, whose poverty is the specter of genius. Moloch, whose face is a cloud of sexless hydrogen. Moloch, whose name is the mind. Moloch, in whom I sit lonely. Moloch, in whom I dream angels. Crazy in Moloch. In Moloch. Lack love and manless in Moloch. Moloch, who entered my soul early. Moloch, in whom I am conscious without a body. Moloch, who frightened me out of my natural ecstasy. Moloch, whom I abandon. Wake up in Moloch, light streaming out of the sky. Moloch, Moloch. Robot apartments, invisible suburbs, skeleton treasurers, blind capitals, demonic industries, spectral nations, invincible madhouses, granite monstrous bombs. They broke their backs lifting Moloch to heaven. Pavements, trees, radios, tons, lifting city to heaven, which exists and is everywhere about us. Visions, omens, hallucinations, miracles, ecstasies, gone down the American river, dreams, adorations, illuminations, religions, the whole boatload of sensitive bull breakthroughs over the river, flips and crucifixions, gone down the flood, highs, epiphanies, despairs, 10 years, animal screams, and suicides. Minds, new loves, mad generation, down on the rocks of time. Real holy laughter in the river. They saw it all, the wild eyes, the holy yells. They bade farewell. They jumped off the roof to solitude, waving, carrying flowers, down to the river, into the street. Part 3. Carl Solomon, I'm with you in Rockland, where you're madder than I am. I'm with you in Rockland, where you must feel very strange. I'm with you in Rockland, where you imitate the shade of my mother. I'm with you in Rockland, where you've murdered your 12 secretaries. I'm with you in Rockland, where you laugh at the invisible humor. I'm with you in Rockland, where we are great writers on the same dreadful typewriter. I'm with you in Rockland, where your condition has become serious and is reported on the radio. I'm with you in Rockland, where the faculties of the skull no longer admit the worms of the senses. I'm with you in Rockland, where you drink the tea of the breasts of the spinsters of Utica. I'm with you in Rockland, where you pun on the bodies of your nurses, the harpies of the Bronx. I'm with you in Rockland, where you scream in a straitjacket that you're losing the game of actual ping pong of the abyss. I'm with you in Rockland, where you bang on the catonic piano of the soul is innocent and immortal. It should never die ungodly in an armed madhouse. I'm with you in Rockland, where more shocks will never return your soul to its body again from its pilgrimage to a cross in the void. I'm with you in Rockland, where you accuse your doctors of insanity and plot the Hebrew Socialist Revolution against the fascist national Golgotha. I'm with you in Rockland, where you will split the heavens of Long Island and resurrect your living human Jesus from the superhuman tomb. I'm with you in Rockland, where there are 25,000 mad comrades all together singing the final stanzas of the Internationale. I'm with you in Rockland, where we hug and kiss the United States under our bed sheets, the United States that coughs all night and won't let us sleep. I'm with you in Rockland, where we wake up electrified out of the coma by our own souls' airplanes roaring over the roof. They've come to drop angelic bombs. The hospital illuminates itself. Imaginary walls collapse. Oh, skinny legions run outside. Oh, starry spangled shock of mercy. The eternal war is here. Oh, victory. Forget your underwear. We're free. I'm with you in Rockland. In my dreams, you walking, dripping from a sea journey on the highway across America in tears to the door of my cottage in the western night. Thank you.